You just sometimes feel like, well, that was the sermon. That's all we needed to hear. I'm just going to sit down now. Thank you. Thank you. I met you on paper, actually on the computer, kind of like dating, right around 10 years ago, right around now in the fall of 2012. I read the surveys assembled by your search committee, Bruce Campbell, Mike Salona, Martha Curry, Vic Kelleher, Jim Olivetti, Janet Osborne, Nancy Walensky. And I had a lot of email exchanges with Nancy, who was the chair of the search committee. I read your bylaws, of which I did kind of a forensic analysis, and I saw where Universalist polity from the Universalist Church in Lynn had been joined somewhat awkwardly in some cases, really interesting. You could see where they had been stitched together with the Unitarian polity from that side of the family. I was really interested in this congregation's struggles with identity. The churches that had merged to become UUCGL had been city churches, and the Universalist Church on Nahant Street had been, at one point in history, the largest Universalist church in America. Then, a calamitous fire in January of 1976, a loss of location, of artifacts, of memories, trauma. Then a move to a beautiful new building, and I should say, very much with the help of the then minister, Robert Slater, two of whose daughters are here today. And he was a wonderful guide and leader at that time with wonderful lay leaders. Into a very different setting, a radically different setting, deep in the woods, in a residential suburban area of Swampscott, extremely close geographically to the UU churches that had merged to become UUCGL, but were no longer Lynn churches. I could see from the search materials that there were enduring questions of mission, purpose, and identity. There was also an incredibly unique and complicated financial picture. I looked through all those restricted endowments and all of the giving that was being done out of various groups within the church, different from any congregation I had known or worked with as a consultant. Further complicated by the fact that the church had newly adopted policy governance, a method of governance that is almost always adopted by large congregations with multiple ministers or directors on staff. And there had been another trauma recently in the congregation's history, a divisive departure of a previous minister. Such wounds to a community take a long time to heal or resolve, and although my immediate predecessor, Van Knight, had been a peacemaking presence for 11 years, some relationships within the congregation were still damaged and hurtful behaviors remembered. I loved my conversations with the search committee. They were honest and funny and warm and smart, and the committee was so self-aware, and every question that I asked, they were just right there with something really thoughtful and interesting and informed. We dug into the complexity of UUCGL, and they never shied from looking at all of it squarely in the eye, the potential and the challenges. I said, there's a lot going on in this congregation. Are you sure you just want to have a 1-year interim? Because the UUA recommends 2. They said, no, we're ready to move forward. And I said, okay, it has occurred to you, I hope, that I am like diametrically opposite from Van Knight in my personality. And, we're really very different people. He is so gentle and I am not. And I just want to, if I say what I want to say and am the person that I am, I'm probably going to get fired in about 3 or 4 years. So maybe I should come in as a contract minister for a while. What do you think of that? And the search committee said, we hear you, but we want to invite you to become our next settled minister. So I said to my friends, I'm going to be the candidate. at UUCGL. I'm really excited. But I might be going back in search in a few years. So, this occasion, coming into our 10th year together, feels really kind of extra amazing. The years have flown by. And we have survived the most brutal ones imaginable. A modern day plague. The church everywhere has been hit hard. It was hard. And here we are. And this is part of why we need to celebrate everywhere we can, whenever we can. We have been deprived of so much of the joy, the laughter, the in-person warmth, and getting to know each other, because we're still getting to know each other, all of us, and the strength of embodied community. We've had such a long time of fear and breathing the same air, touching each other, hugging. And it is right and good, therefore, to celebrate in all ways possible. I want to say a word about the archetype of the minister. It's a role that carries with it very old associations and images, some of them positive, some of them negative, all very charged. Because historically, the clergy person was a person who was considered to be especially close to God, and historically and traditionally claimed to speak for God. This is a person who interpreted Holy Scriptures for the faithful and presided over rites of passage. In New England, the clergy historically had a tremendous amount of power in society. But we think, well, we're not like that anymore. At least not in the UU tradition, and not in most churches in New England. There isn't that sense of, the holy being, and nobody speaks for God. We don't even know that we share a God concept altogether. I mean, we're real modern folks. But there are still vestiges of those deep archetypal responses when you see the person in the vestments doing the ritual kinds of things, wearing the stole. All kinds of emotions and instincts get activated. Sometimes suspicion, another charlatan. Sarcasm, I'm not taken in by that. Admiration, religious leader, that's a good thing. Projections, I bet I know what I know what she's thinking. I know she likes me or doesn't like me or saw me. It's very, very common. Parent associations, hesitations and anxieties about religion in general, the numinous, life and death, longing for God, anger at God. All of that comes at the clergy, at the minister, and I completely accept and understand that, because I'm not just a person in this work. I understand it's also a role, just as you are inhabiting a role when you are teacher, doctor, therapist, parent, lawyer. Many of you are professionally are in work that is very strongly associated with archetypes. I have been able to have a long tenure with you in large part because you have allowed me from day one to be myself in this role. I have been able to laugh with you, sometimes irreverently, to get angry at times, to be silly, to speak honestly of the loneliness I experience as a person who lives alone and far from family. I've been able to be a strong feminist and a mouthy one, to cuss, not here, but in meetings I've let them slip now and then, to be really creative and sometimes to just be lacking in creativity or inspiration, because that happens. I have felt free to sing show tunes, to share my ridiculous love of Beagles. And I have never felt stuffed into a box with expectations of how a minister looks, sounds, dresses, or believes. And thank you for appreciating my shoes. So that's been something we've definitely shared. Behind the scenes, the part of my ministry with you that is private is the way I hold you in my heart all the time. I dare to say this to you because we have grown to know each other over the past almost decade. I am constantly and always carrying you and the concerns of this congregation in my mind, my body, and my heart. And I feel the sting of inadequacy much more frequently than I do the satisfaction of a job well done. There is always much, much more to do than can ever be done by one person or even with an incredible, wonderful staff. So I understand that the work of the minister is to try. We are growing into harmony with the divine. That one phrase from our covenant is so comforting to me because it promises that our efforts are enough. We are not perfect. We are always growing. There's grace in that. The energy we exchange flows back and forth. There are times when I apply my makeup on Sunday mornings feeling like I don't really have much to give. But I know by now that just being with you will be inspiring. It always, always is. Board meetings are inspiring. I mean, I'm trying to think, like probably 9 a year for, so that's a lot. There's a lot of sermons, but board meetings that so many of my colleagues go, oh God, I got a board meeting tonight. I always say, I love watching people work together so earnestly and with so much care to be stewards of a historic institution and to attend to relationships as they take care of serious business. That's never not a cool thing to watch and be part of. Pastoral visits and conversations too, to be in that intimate space with you, to be trusted with your questions and concerns, and sometimes complaints, to accompany you even unto death, to be the one non-family member allowed in the ICU. It is a profound honor to preside over the memorial service, the wedding, to bless your children on behalf of the church, to name them as we do in our dedications. This is such a privilege and an honor. Deep life is what we're after. That's really the job of the minister, to encourage and equip the congregation in all ways possible, to live deeply, to not forget, ignore, or betray the spirit that animates us and all of creation, to respect that spiritual element is real and that it makes demands of us. In my mentoring work with clergy, I always say, it's not your church, it's their church. They have called or hired you to be with them for whatsoever time as it may be, to keep before them their mission and their values, to articulate them well, to connect those values to everything that they choose to do, every mission they choose to undertake, and to support at all times and equip the people as best you can in becoming who they say they want to be. They say they want to be that. On our first candidating weekend, when I led my first Sunday service with you, there was in the order of service what we now call Candles of Hope and Healing. I'd reviewed the liturgy and I knew that there was a candle lighting, but I didn't know how it would work. And so I talked with Francie Fitch, your music director at the time. And she said, oh, that's really lovely. They line up and they get in the different aisles and they line up and they come and everybody puts a candle in the bowl. And I said, oh, okay, so do I need to be up there and helping them know who comes next or whatever? And she goes, no. You don't need to, you can just sit and enjoy the music. They know exactly what to do. I said, oh, okay. Wow, that could be quite a traffic jam. And I sat there and the music was playing and the people came and did this beautiful kind of gracious approach to these lights that represent the prayers of your hearts. And they were gesturing to each other, you go next. And sometimes somebody would take a little bit of extra time because they were really sending up something very deep and they wanted to do it with great intention. And the way that the congregation held the space for that, all of my anxieties or whatever was going on with me completely dissolved. It just became absorbed in this greater thing that was being created. And I felt nothing but gratitude. And I felt my spirit spark from yours. It was like a sense of shared light from what I called the bowl of light. That's how I think of it now. And I said, oh, this is going to be nice. This is going to be a good time growing into harmony with the divine, with these people. I love you with all that I am and all that I have to offer. I am so grateful for these years.
So this chalice was made by a Unitarian Universalist artist, Doug Besser, who lives in Oak Park, Illinois, which is coincidentally where Vicki also lived from 1989 to 91. The form, to me, evokes the shape of a boat, a symbol of our community together on this amazing spiritual journey we call life. So close to the ocean that we are here. The color, I believe, is one of your favorite colors. Very earthy, beautiful chalice. So we're going to try not to break this one. We will light this chalice from the flame of our church chalice, and just as the Transylvanian villagers brought their own flames back into their homes, so will Vicki symbolically carry the light from this church with her when she brings this new chalice back home. And to do that, as we hear simple song, a song that was also sung at Reverend Vicki's installation service, we will pass this chalice around. So I'm going to pass the chalice around the congregation, and I need your help with that. I'll start the process. Please hold it for a moment during the music and bless it with your own light and the light of this community. I'm going to take this out here.
Sing God a simple song, loud, loud, make it up as you go along, loud, loud, sing like you like to sing. God wants all simple things.
These words are actually from the sermon Meg Riley preached at the installation called called into wild places. In spiritual communities and in UU congregations, over and over, I sing and pray and am brought back to life again. Numb parts of me are revitalized. I remember who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I find deeper meaning. I recommit myself to live a life that matters in relationship with others whom I trust. If church didn't exist, I'd have to invent something very much like it.